Honestly, it's a crime you're missing out on these, but I've got you, don't worry. Hello, fellow book nerds. This is Gabby, and today I have a very fun video. Today I have a very fun video for you because if you don't know, I am somewhat passionate about reading new releases. I just like knowing what's up. I like reading new authors. I just feel like you get a very fresh new look, way more diversity, and just so much interesting stuff to choose from. So I love new releases. I always read loads in a year they're coming out. I don't actually know how many I read this year, but I know how many I read and wanted to recommend to you, and that is 14. So I have 14 books here. I kind of divided them by genres, and it's basically 2022 releases that I read and loved, and I think you should pick it out. They're in different genres so that you can get a little bit of a variety, and you can figure out what's good for you, what isn't good for you, and what you should pick up. So starting off with what I've realized this year is my jam above all other jams because it's East Asian fantasy, and the amount of books I gave 5 stars that were just like East Asian fantasies is insane. And this is the biggest category, but you can browse the categories down there, so don't worry about that. I have 4 East Asian fantasies, 1 South Asian fantasy, and all of them were 5 stars or 4.5s, whatever, doesn't matter, but they were all very highly ranked. First 2022 release you should not be sleeping on is The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea by Axio. So this book is a Korean-inspired fantasy. We follow a girl who sacrificed herself to the sea god in order to appease him and save her village. I love this book. This is my favorite book of 2022. Spoiler alert if you've not seen that video, but I have decided that this is my favorite book of the year, and that's a big title and that's a heavy crown to be wearing, and I thought this one deserved it 1000%. I love the writing, super whimsical, gorgeous, love the setting, just like so unique and interesting, and just like fairy tale. That's all I have to say, fairy tale. And I love the writing in it, I love the characters, everything worked for me. So if you're gonna pick up one East Asian fantasy book by a Korean author, pick this one up, but you should pick up all of them. They're all good, but you should pick up this one. Number 2 on my list is A Magic Steeped in Poison by Judy Island. So this was number 2 in my favorite books of 2022 list. So maybe you're like, is this a deja vu? That's why I'm running through them, because I've spoken so much about how much I love these books. But this one, we follow a girl who by mistake poisoned her mom and her sister. Her mom died and her sister is chronically ill, or fatally ill, and she joins this contest for the best tea brewer. Tea brewing in this world is magic. She joins the contest in order to win and help her sister heal. I love this. Again, beautiful writing, beautiful setting, beautiful exploration of friendship and strength and coming into your own. And I really love this one. It was so much fun. I cannot wait to read the sequel. Probably by the time you've seen this, I've read the sequel, but I am still waiting to read it in real time. So hopefully soon. But yeah, this book was amazing and you should totally check it out. The third book I want to recommend is Last of Talons by Sophie Kim. So this book is about a girl who's like a thief, but part of a group, and her thieving group gets murdered, and then she has to work for the person who did it. So she gets tasked with stealing this artifact that actually belongs to the Goblin King, and as a punishment she gets taken to Goblin King's realm and has to kill him. If not, she doesn't, he kills her. It's kind of just like a paranormal romance, like not just, it's a fantasy and it's a paranormal romance, not just paranormal romance, but I didn't expect that, and I really loved it. I think the main couple had great banter, great chemistry, and just all really fell in together quite nicely. I don't remember the writing being super purple or whimsical or anything like that, so maybe if you're not so much into that part of East Asian fantasy, maybe that's good for you. But overall, I thought the main character was really amazing, their journey was really amazing, the relationship really worked for me, and it was just fun and more on the heist side of it, but then also it was like exploration of alcoholism. So there's a lot going on in this book, but I did quite enjoy it, and I thought the main character and the love interest had great chemistry, which is really important in a romance. So you go. Number 4 is The Red Palace by Jane Her. So this actually isn't a fantasy, so I did lie to you. But this book is a historical fiction murder mystery. So it's also by a Korean author, and we follow a palace maid whose mentor gets killed, and she kind of ingrains herself into the investigation. Again, amazing romance, amazing chemistry, and I just really enjoyed the mystery element. I really love the historical fiction element. If you are a fan of K-dramas, there are also historical K-dramas, you are set with this one, my friend. I just thought it worked as a mystery novel, worked as a historical fiction, worked as a romance, so what else can you want from it? And it was just a really fun time. And last book, like I said, is actually a South Asian author's book, so it's a South Asian fantasy, but it's Kaikeyi by Vaishnavi Patel. So in this one, it's a retelling of a myth of Ramayana or Ramadayana, I think. It's told from the perspective of the villain, so it's a villainous queen that betrays her stepson, but really it's about magic, it's about family, found family, different family relations, and I thought that was really interestingly done. Overall, it was, if you like Circe by Madeline Miller, you will like this book because I feel like it's just cut out from the same cloth, and really is an exploration of, you know, misogyny and women's stories and their place in history, but done really well, really nuanced look, and I just had a lot of fun with it. All right, these books I have all mentioned in my 2022 best of list, so let's move on to a different type, different genre, different section. So now we're going to talk about dark fantasy. So this is horror fantasy, gruesome fantasy, weird fantasy, that kind of vibe. And the first book I wanted to recommend in dark fantasy is Juniper and Thorn by Eva Reed. So this book is a second book by the author of... Did I not have it? I have it over there. The Wolf and the Huntsman. And it's a retelling of the Juniper Tree, which is a Brothers Grimm's fairy tale that I've never heard of. But basically, we follow a girl who grew up with her two older sisters and her father, who's the last magician in the whole country. And it's about her coming to her own and stepping out of this abusive household and embracing her own power and freeing herself out of that. So there's a lot of really dark themes like child abuse, sexual abuse, psychological abuse, physical abuse, all kinds of abuse really. But I thought it was a really well constructed, really well thought out, really well executed story that really put you in main character's headspace, and it was just weird and whimsical in the dark fairy tale realm. I feel like this author really does a really good job at doing dark fairy tales, and this one was no different. If you like disturbing horror dark, if you don't mind body horror or like cannibalism, that kind of stuff, if you don't mind reading about things like that, I think this book is for you. It is truly dark and gruesome, but like if that's something that you enjoy, I think you enjoy this book. Next dark fantasy is House of Hunger by Alexis Henderson. So this is a horror, and we follow a girl who lives in the slums with her brother. Her life is pretty miserable. She's a maid, but she hates her job and she hates her life. And one day she sees an advert for a blood maid, and blood maids are kind of these concubines almost that are taken by lords and ladies in the north as sources of blood. A blood maid might have a definitely interesting life, but also is set for life. So she thinks this can be an escape for her out of this abusive, miserable state that she's in. This is a sapphic novel, and I thought it was good when I read it. I thought it was really dark, and it kind of like questions and examines your preconceived notions about who can an abuser be, and villains and what they look like. And I really liked like reading it. I thought it was very interesting, and then I had a discussion for my book club, the standalone book club, and that just took it to whole new levels. I had so much fun discussing this book with my co-host. I just thought it was like such a nuanced conversation, and all of us got something different from it. So if you like a book where you really need to think about it and really truly examine and uncover the amount of, you know, amazing and disturbing things happening, then this is a book for you. And if you want someone to talk about it with, hit me up or watch that live show because it was really good. But I had a really good time with it, and I think I grew to appreciate it even more hearing other people's perspective on it. All right, the rest of the books I don't have physical copies, so you can just feast your eyes on these picks. But another dark and I would maybe call it more sci-fi, but it's also kind of a fantasy. It's called Extasia by Claire Legrand. So in this one, we follow this Puritan, super religious cult, basically, where women are considered sinful and the reason why the world fell. So like it used to be our world, but then women did something so outrageous with their sin that they brought about the apocalypse, basically. And we follow a girl who lives in this society and she uncovers witchcraft. So that's kind of the setting, but it's a very disturbing, really interesting story that just kind of goes unexpected places. And I think the main character has such an amazing journey of self-acceptance, discovery, that is just so cool. It's also sapphic, and it was one of the more interesting things I read this year. It was really an interesting world that I wasn't like even expecting when I got into it. So it was really pleasant surprise to see how just like expansive it was. And I don't really hear people talking about it, and I think they should. And last book in the dark fantasy section is The Hacienda by Isabel Canaz. So in this book, we follow a woman whose dad gets murdered, so she has to kind of marry rich in order to provide for her and her mother. So this is set in 19 or 1800s Mexico, and she decides to marry this man Rodolfo, who has a house and is quite well-standing member of the society. And when she gets to the house, weird spooky things start happening, and she realizes maybe she chewed a little bit more than she bit a little bit more than she could chew. It's disturbing, it's gross, it's horror, it's disturbing, it's really well constructed in terms of tension. It has an interesting story going throughout it, and has an interesting romance. So it worked for me on many levels, and I would really recommend it, especially for fans of like Mexican Gothic, Rebecca. I've never read, but like I feel like Rosemary's Baby was like kind of, I never watched it, but I feel like that was kind of like the vibe of like gaslighting. And I put this in cute fantasy category, and it's kind of by itself. I don't know if it's cute, but it's just a little bit less hard-hitting. No, it's like a little bit more lightweight maybe, and it's Sunbearer Trials by Aidan Thomas. So in this one we follow a world full of Mayan gods. These gods go into three categories: the gods, who are the most powerful, the most revered, the not teal, what am I thinking, I forgot, another category who's like but more down to earth but still quite powerful. And then we have obsidians, who powerful but evil, basically. And then we have Theo, who is a trans boy, a son of the goddess of birds, and he's like in that middle field. He's in the middle tier. He's in the middle tier of godhood, and he gets drafted into Sunbearer trials, which are trials to the death to decide who's worthy of the Sunbearer mantle and who gets sacrificed to the god Sol, and he unexpectedly gets drafted into them. I thought it was such a wholesome, amazing book that really reminded me of Percy Jackson. It gave me those Percy Jackson vibes, but for an older audience, and I really, really like that. So if that's kind of the story you're looking for, it's also filled with diversity. It's got trans characters, gay characters, like so many people of color. It was just like a really interesting world that I really, really loved visiting. Okay, then we got sci-fi. So I've got two books for sci-fi. First sci-fi recommendation is Tell Me an Ending by Joe Harkin. So in this book we follow, it's kind of like, how do I describe this? It's kind of almost like short stories, but they're all intertwined with each other. So we follow a world where memory erasure became possible. So you can cut out a bit of your memory, and then there's some complications with the surgery that come to light, and it's kind of the world dealing with this issue of whether we should be able to remove our memories in the first place. So very interesting, really, really complex look at this with many different characters from very different perspectives, and their stories were all different, and I really liked that. I thought it was one of the more interesting things I read this year. And if you like sci-fi, especially like very thoughtful and examining sci-fi, I think you'll like it. I like that it was kind of short stories. It doesn't always work for me, but I think this felt more like a cohesive novel because it all had the threads coming together and it kind of made sense in the end. The other sci-fi that I really enjoyed is called The Memory Librarian, and this one is by Janelle Monáe. So it's the singer Janelle Monáe. So this book was based on the singer's album. I don't remember what the album's called, but it's her album, and it's kind of a bunch of authors writing short stories kind of based around the concepts explored in the album. And I really, really liked it. I liked all the short stories bar maybe one, which I was just not crazy about the last one. Otherwise, they were all interesting. So like the first main story is about a world where again, you can steal people's memories, but in this world there's like memory librarians who are kind of keepers of it. It had a lot of exploration about memories, about identity, about sexual freedom and diversity, and kind of adversities to that. So it's kind of set in like a dystopian world. They're all vaguely connected, but not like all set in the exact same world. So it's like maybe you can see how this society progressed certain levels, but it's kind of like past, future, present. It's all very interesting. I think the conversations that were explored were super interesting, and I just had a great time with it. And I feel like not many people, I saw it like everywhere in terms of bookstores, but I've never heard anyone talk about it, and I'm here to tell you that it's actually quite good and really worth it. And then we have two contemporaries that I wanted to mention if you're into contemporaries or non-sci-fi, non-fantasy, just like actual fiction, because one is actually historical fiction. So Carrie Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid is a historical fiction. It's set in the 1970s/1990s, and we follow Carrie Soto, who is the best tennis player in the world, and she won the most Grand Slams, is super honored and there's a word I keep forgetting, but it's like she's got a lot of accolades. And then 10-ish years after her retirement, there's another player who is close to like beating her title, her record. So she decides to join tennis once more and fight for her title. And it's a story about father and a daughter, because her father is her tennis coach. But it was done so well, and I think it was just like really explored, really with a nuance and interesting look at it. So I really enjoyed that. It was beautiful, it was heartwarming, heart-wrenching, and it was a story about a workaholic, you know, kind of overcoming that. It was also a really interesting like romantic relationship, although at its core I think it's a story about a father and a daughter, and also not feeling good enough and combating that. And I thought that was beautiful. And the last one I wanted to mention is kind of like a light-hearted one, but let's end on like something fun. So it's called My Mechanical Romance by Alexandra Farrell Fulmuth. So this is another name, or maybe the real name, or maybe pseudonym, I'm not sure, for Olivia Blake, who is the author of Atlas 6. But this one's completely different. This one is a YA romance, and I just thought it was wonderful. I don't really read YA romances anymore. I will occasionally read an adult romance, and I love romances in general, but just YA part that doesn't really appeal to me. But it was so cute. It's about this girl who changes schools and is kind of like not sure what she wants to do with her life, doesn't really have any ambitions, and it's just kind of like a leaf in the wind. And then she kind of is forced to join the Robotics Society, which is heralded. This boy is in charge, and he's like a massive nerd and super good at school and really diligent and dedicated, and he really works really hard. And it's kind of romance between the two of them and growing up and stuff like that. But it was so cute. It really warmed my heart. It made me so happy. So, you know, if you want a nice light thing to read this January, consider My Mechanical Romance, because I thought it was honestly so adorable and so well done, and like it just warmed my heart. Okay, well, those are all the 2022 releases I wanted to recommend to you. These are not all the ones I read, but I thought these are the ones that are really worth it in each category. Hopefully it's quite widespread. I mean, it's mostly fantasy because that's what I read. But I really hope that you got something out of it that you wanted. Maybe you've already heard me talking about all these books and you really don't care, then that's fair play too. But let me know, did I convince you to read any of these? Have you not heard of them or anything like that? I would be really interested to know what's one 2022 release that you think I should read and you would recommend to me. I am really curious and I would love to know. But thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, if you could comment, like, and subscribe, I really appreciate it. It really helps me out. But that's it from me, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!